Why does the JonBenet Ramsey case seem so complex? The prevailing sentiment is that this case is unsolvable due to what seems to be conflicting evidence. The reason for the appearance of conflicting evidence is simple. We at True Crime Oracle believe that no less than 4 individual, yet connected crimes against JonBenet took place on the night in question. Crime number 1. The sexual abuse of JonBenet. Take into account these 3 following facts. 1. JonBenet's regressive bedwetting. 2. JonBenet suffered from a condition called NSV. And 3. JonBenet's hymen was eroded. You will be confronted with the grim likelihood that JonBenet was enduring somewhat frequent sexual abuse. Whoever was habitually abusing JonBenet did so in a way that obscured any direct evidence on her body. However, JonBenet's bedwetting had started to get worse, even resulting in her defecating in bed. It is well documented that children of JonBenet's age, who are sexually abused, will soil themselves as a defense mechanism against their abuser. On the night of JonBenet's murder, Teen Ramsey claims that she was violently, sexually assaulted, for the first time, by an unknown intruder. If this was true, then why is there so little evidence of a brutal sexual assault? The brutality is mainly evident in the skull fracture and the strangulation by garrote. There is nothing that suggests that these assaults were part of the sexual abuse. Without diminishing the horror of what JonBenet endured, the actual evidence indicates that the sexual abuse specifically was far less brutal. The remnants of the paintbrush that were found in JonBenet's vaginal canal suggest that the paintbrush was either inserted only once, or was transferred by digital penetration. This suggests that the insertion of the paintbrush was part of the staging. If the paintbrush was used to brutally assault JonBenet, the damage to her anatomy would have been far worse. And if the paintbrush caused the blood on JonBenet's inner thighs, why would an intruder clean it up? Again, to be very clear, when referring only to the evidence of sexual abuse, the brutality was far less than what Team Ramsey wants the public to believe. Ask yourself this question. Why does Team Ramsey want the public to believe that the sexual abuse was far more brutal than it was? The abuse appears to have been carefully administered, over a period of time, to hide the evidence. An intruder would have no reason to hide any physical indications of a sexual assault. Crime number 2. The assault on JonBenet that resulted in her skull fracture. Although John was able to conceal evidence of chronic abuse, something happened on the night in question that caused JonBenet to bleed. A fluid, originally thought to be semen, was found on JonBenet's inner thighs. This fluid was later identified as the remnants of JonBenet's own blood, that seemed to have been wiped away. We at True Crime Oracle believe that the trauma from whatever caused the bleeding scared JonBenet, causing her to scream, or otherwise seek help. Because there would be no way to hide the bleeding and new evidence of abuse, John had to act quickly. He chose to silence JonBenet with a strike to the head. The strike to JonBenet's skull was strong enough to knock her unconscious and cave in part of the top of her cranium. The indentation on JonBenet's skull suggests something like a baseball bat as the weapon used to create it. Experts have commented that the blow to JonBenet's skull was, quote, powerful enough to take down a 350-pound linebacker. Who else in the home, other than John, would have had the strength to strike such a blow? Although John would not have known about the exact anatomical extent of the skull injury, he nonetheless thought JonBenet was dead, or else beyond help. Crime number 3. The murder of JonBenet by strangulation. After John knocked JonBenet unconscious, and found that she would not wake up, he realized that his options were limited. There was no innocent explanation for the state of JonBenet. John would be arrested almost immediately if he went to a hospital. John chose to put JonBenet out of her misery by creating a garrote and strangling her to death. John chose this method of killing JonBenet because it would lend credibility to the foreign faction kidnapping scenario, laid out in the ransom note. And second, John knew that the garrote could probably be seen as a sexual tool by investigators, giving credibility to a brutal sexual assault. Again, many claim that the garrote was used as part of the sexual assault. Unless the abuser erotically asphyxiated JonBenet while she was unconscious, we at True Crime Oracle believe that this is unlikely. Crime number 4. The staging and moving of JonBenet's dead body. After strangling JonBenet, John continued staging the kidnapping scenario. After writing the fake ransom note with the intention of getting JonBenet's body out of the house in a suitcase, John moved her body to several possible storage spots. After it became untenable for John to relocate JonBenet's body out of the house, he settled on putting her in the wine cellar room. Although John claims to have loosened it when he discovered her, the cord that bound JonBenet appears to be rather loose. Was the cord actually used to bind JonBenet? Or was the cord added later by John, like the duct tape, when he staged the kidnapping scenario? If a crime scene seems to suggest multiple motives, this is an indication that evidence has been staged to hide the actual motive. We at True Crime Oracle believe that John realized that he had to somehow attribute the evidence of his sexual abuse to the quote, intruder. John understood that if investigators deduced that there was previous sexual abuse, John would become the prime suspect. So as part of the staging, John in a sense added to the evidence or sexual abuse to cultivate the idea that the intruder was responsible. So essentially, part of the sexual abuse was staged. This is the main reason why there seems to be conflicting motives. John created the kidnapping scenario and then set up more evidence of sexual abuse, all in the attempt to hide his own chronic, and more carefully administered sexual abuse. By recognizing that John committed 4 distinct, yet connected criminal acts, the evidence becomes less perplexing.